Thank you for tuning in to the People Space for Debate, www.plymouthpeoples.com. You can follow us at Plymouth Peoples on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Snapchat as well. We just got on there. We're starting to get used to it, trying to keep up with the kids do. I am your host, Mack here, and I am joined by three lovely ladies, educators in the local area of Springfield, Mass. Thank you for joining me here in this 413 circle.
Keep bigging us up.
Yeah. There's gonna be more to come, I promise you. And just before we go into what today's debate is about, because there's a lot to talk about, if we can go around and just say say our names and how are we an educator here in Springfield? Where do you teach? Where do you fit into the education field in some kind of way? We can start to my left.
Oh, well, thank you. How y'all doing? My name's Janelle. I've been teaching for about, 5 or 6 years? You kind of lose count after a certain point. I teach at a charter school, and I've been teaching English my whole educational career, English and history. So that's where I'm at in that.
Okay.
So I am Latonia Monroe Naylor, and I am involved in a very non-traditional way. I've been working in youth development and education through my church for the past 20 years as a Sunday school teacher, but also working in youth development, after-school programming and stuff like that. Also, I work at the United Way, so I work oversee all of the educational initiatives, so I work in the schools a lot throughout the district and also throughout the county. And I love United Way. I love what we do for education and for our young people, and I'm also running for school committee. Okay. I want to definitely be at a level where we can implement some policies that really improve the quality of the education right now.
Specifically, school committee at large.
Yes.
Candidate, right?
At large, yes, in Springfield.
All right.
My name is Imani. I am a math teacher here in Springfield. Been teaching middle school math for about 5 years. Did Teach for America in Southwest Ohio over in Dayton. And then came on back home to Springfield when Teach for America said they wanted to open up their core here. And so I jumped back at the chance. And I've been teaching in public schools and teaching middle school math.
Awesome.
Man, shout out to the woman of color teaching STEM, man. That's what I'm talking about. Big ups.
I love it.
Oh, and I myself, I teach English. That's part of I'm a new teacher, so I'm developing. So this debate is kind of really helpful for me as well in my journey. So earlier, one of our polemics, Brother Aaron, hope you're hearing. He had this. We were talking about how the purpose of school, like the whole K through 12 system, to be exact, it varies based on who you ask. And some would say that the purpose is to prepare them for college. Some would say the purpose is to prepare them for the workforce. Some would say the purpose is to prepare them for the real world. And various people define the real world as different things. And from that, the debate question came, when teaching children, what is more important? To teach them how to be good workers or to be good people? Now, before this debate started, I was hearing you guys are preparing up, and I was hearing that you all think that, well, not you all, but Imani, Jay, you guys think that being a good worker and being a good person are pretty much the same thing?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So we're just gonna. You don't really gotta go into depth in it. It sounds kind of obvious to me, and I'm even trying to understand his question a little bit better. But developing our students' character is essential to us, especially if you invested in your students. That comes before curriculum. That comes before lessons. Because if your character is not present, you're not going to be invested, nor will you receive the buy-in I have for you as an educator, because I'm teaching to your future, and I believe in you and who you are and your character and what you can be, especially if you teach in this community and you're a person of color. So I would hope you even be more invested in your Black and brown students. So that, because you know where they're coming from and you know where they can go. So being of good character means that will manifest in your work ethic, as Imani was saying earlier. She's like, it goes hand in hand.
Yeah, I mean, it's for me seeing the question. I was like, this is a non-question. Like they
Non
are
sequitur.
one and the same. I'd be interested to see a school where someone is like, I'm preparing you to go to work, and that is all. You see it in the change of our standards. You know, it used to just say college and career, and they had to change it up because they were like, that's not enough. It's got to be college, career, and civic ready. Our students need to be ready for all of it. Good teachers know that the goal of school is to prepare students to be independent learners, to be independent lifelong learners beyond their time here. Like, I know I only got you for these 180 days. I need to make sure that whatever skills I'm helping you develop are going to move you towards being more independent, more I guess just more independent. That's really
solution orientated.
Yeah. And then, like, I talk to my kids all the time, like, when am I ever going to use this?
Right.
And I'm like, you mean when are you ever going to come across a problem that you haven't seen before and dig into a toolkit of skills that are going to help you solve it every single day of your life? Like, that's what math is. Like, that's what I'm helping you to do. It's not about the Pythagorean theorem. Stop putting that on Facebook. That's not what it's about.
Just to specify real quick before we go forward, his argument is that he's not arguing whether being a good worker or being a good person, like choosing between the two. Like, he agrees that every school in some degree teaches you to be a good person, teaches you to be a better person through character building and whatnot, and also being a good worker by giving you skills and vocations to go out into the world and be a productive member of society. But what he was arguing is that because, and often in schools, especially public schools, there is a scarcity of resources, what should be the most important value? Building the child's character and making sure they making sure young boys grow up to respect women and understand consent, and making sure that they grow up law-abiding and whatnot? Or should the focus be more on teaching them skill? Should money and resources go towards teaching them skill building and trades and how to graduate and then go on to work in our factories and innovate the next generation of technology and whatnot to advance humanity forward?
So I am like, first of all, the fact that we're talking about scarcity of resources for our children and having to make a choice tells us that there's a problem. So in districts around our district, Springfield, there's not a choice. Both of those things are happening. The kids are learning how to be good people, and they're learning how to develop those skills to be good workers, right? However, the problem that I have and what I have observed is that certain schools in the district definitely have that ability to do that, and others are very depleted. And a lot of it goes back to the leadership of the school. So, perfect example. One of the things that I keep advocating for is increasing community partnerships and supports. And the reason why I say that is when I'm on the advisory board at Duggan, and what they've been able to do is develop a very strategic enrichment program where their kids are receiving enrichment blocks every single week from all kinds of agencies, businesses, coming in and providing, career technical programming, which is very similar to vocational, right? But expanding the kids' mind so that not only are they learning how to do 2 + 2 = 4, but they're learning about bullying, anti-bullying techniques, how to respect one another, how to prepare for college, how to do a resume, civic engagement. They're learning all these different facets, music, art. And they're not paying for those services because the community organizations already get funding to do it, and they're coming into the school and they're providing it for free. So when we talk about the scarcity of resources, we have to, and I'm a mom, so I'm always thinking about how do you expand your resources. And I think that it's important for us to look at it in a way to say, okay, our kids deserve both of these. How do we think strategically to make sure that it happens for all of our kids? And right now it's not. And so to our point, these women both said it very eloquently about the fact that you can not really have, a good job, a good worker without being a good person. But at the same token, what a lot of people would say a good worker is your production. How many numbers? How much money are you making? How many cars are you selling? You can be a crook and make a lot of money selling cars, that doesn't make you a good person, but to that person who you're making money for, they may say you're a good worker. So I think that it goes back to what type of education do we want our kids to have? Do we want them to only grow up and be salesmen? Or do we want them to be able to be doctors and lawyers or their own businesses, start their, being entrepreneurs? If we want that, then we definitely have to build up the character of them, because they're never going to be that if they don't have something in them that's greater than the fact that they look around in their communities and they see a lot of things that tell the story about hopelessness. And they need to have that. And so our good teachers that we have here do that for their kids every day. But there's a lot of teachers that are not able to do that.
I think to push a little and to add on to that, I think that whenever I hear the phrase, like, we want our kids to be like doctors and lawyers, and that, I'm like, those are two things that apparently everyone wants all their kids to be, and there's millions of people in the world, and those are only two jobs. So
all the time.
I think what happens in education is you have to get kids, you change your definition of success. Because what I see in Springfield, and I probably posted on Facebook because I got so angry, that there's this idea that, like, you making it is, you got these skills, you left. Went on Mesa and yourself because you left. And those are who we celebrate. Those are the people who we bring back. We're like, look at this person who went through our schools and just did all these amazing things somewhere else.
Exactly.
And we have this
brain drain.
Where it's not as if our schools there's this story that our schools aren't actually performing, aren't doing the things
and
they need to do for anybody, which isn't true at all. There are I went to a panel, and there are these people from Northampton who were saying they love when they get teachers from Springfield because they are so prepared.
Oh, they're the best teachers. They get the most professional development, training, all of that good stuff. And
it's like, Springfield doesn't get credit for that. Like, when you hear about Springfield, you're like, oh, the kids are failing, they're doing all these things. I'm like, no, our kids don't have the resources, like you were saying. They're not receiving the things that they need.
Exactly.
And
deserve.
And that's true, and exactly deserve. And not to mention, like, a lot of times we are, Springfield is given either a negative perspective or it's exotified as something urban and hood, and you should come in and challenge yourself as an educator if you're not from this arena. And it's not. What Springfield needs to be looked at as what the potential that is in it, as well as the positive things in this community. There's a lot of wonderful things happening, especially in the Black and brown community, and there's so many of us, and we're starting to actually coalesce together and build each other up more so, and invest in each other more. Yes, there is in areas of lack of resources, and you hit the nail on the head, accessing these different places in our community where we can benefit our youth. And our children are very intelligent, capable, and smart. As much as people say they are failing, let's not forget that we also, it's like there's always that idea that you're trying to make a fish climb a tree.
Exactly.
And some things that one student may do is differentiate instruction, just different ways to teach your kids and different ways to assess and success.
Exactly.
I am a huge fan of being realistic and saying, especially if it's a high school student, if you don't want to go to college, that's actually okay. If you want to start your business out of high school and you believe you can do that, have the passion and ambition to do that. Just know college is an option, know a trade is an option, because God bless the person who has a trade and doesn't have student loan debt.
Right.
Snap your fingers to that one, because that actually we all can attest to that situation. But I really think that there needs to be a really big change in how we look at Springfield and the brain drain. How many of us left and thought, oh, I got to get out of here? But Springfield has so many things happening. And if you don't think it does, why do you think the colleges are spreading and expanding? Why do you think the casinos come in here? Because there's a market for something and they know they can benefit from it. Right. So if businesses can see that, why can't we step back and say we need to see it as well?
Exactly.
I've heard Warren Buffett say in an interview on ABC that yes, colleges are expanding and more students are going to college now than ever. However, less students are graduating high school with a trade or going into a trade. They're all pursuing liberal arts more than anything.
They don't know what they want
to do. His comment exactly was, or how are we going to move this society forward with a bunch of painters and therapists and philosophers? And to that comment, would you, so with comments like that, do you all worry that we're not teaching our kids enough about enough skills? And
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. So the school I work at, a teacher who was there when it first opened up came and was like, we used to have shop class in here, and we had the pottery classes in here, we had draft classes in here, and home ec here. And I'm like, well, why don't we have that? Like, I would love to. I didn't have any of those classes when I was in school. Shows you how young I am. And those are all gone.
And you know what's the crazy thing? If you really want to think about it, I compare it to this. We all, the doctors and nursing, that is a trade. You are trained in that field. A nurse is a trained person, just like a carpenter and just like a plumber. And these are, there's nothing wrong with the liberal arts. You need people to work on English and stuff. We need teachers and all that. That's important. But the healthy balance and exposure. I love Putnam for what it does. I have relatives who are at Putnam, and they're going to come out making comparable money to me because they're going to have an IT certification. And I'm like, oh, I'm a little upset, just a little bit. My saltiness is real, but I'm just...
But see, but think about it, right? So at Putnam, there's a give or take 350 student wait list. It's very hard to get into Putnam.
Look at it. It's
extremely difficult.
If you don't know what Putnam is, look it up online. It's like a college campus. It's gorgeous.
It's awesome.
There's a question of what is that? Because
that's why, and that's what
working in the 8th grade, like working with students who we go through the entire lottery process and all of that, and then seeing students at Putnam who actually didn't go through the lottery process and went in some back doorway, or seeing kids who got in, it's like, oh,
nepotism, you mean?
Nepotism, and you just push your child in, and I'm like, that's not fair. Like, fair in this situation would be completely random.
Right.
And you're not even allowing that to
And it's place. Not completely random. It's a very intentional scoring process.
They look at the kids' grades at 7th grade, actually. But,
last year.
Okay, so just some
clarification in the back for the people listening. Yeah,
right. Putnam is a local Springfield, Massachusetts high school, vocational, right? Vocational, focused. So should the answer be that we need more Putnams? We need more vocational.
Absolutely.
We need more Putnams. Yes,
we need more.
I think it's not only do you need more Putnams, but you need to allow a lot of those trade skills to be taught once again, and just your general high schools. Like, there's no reason why a person who goes through high school shouldn't be able to learn your basic skills of how to change a tire.
Is there enough time?
And there is enough time.
Yeah.
There is plenty of time. My third year of teaching, our kids had gym twice a day. There is plenty of time in the day, especially if our Massachusetts legislators are pushing for there to be extended days. There is plenty of time.
Let's not talk about that.
Well, the biggest deal is this, right? So there's career technical, which is what they call it now, vocational, they call it now career technical programming. And so my vision is that there's career technical programming in all the high schools, not just Putnam. Obviously, Putnam's going to have a little bit more extensive because that's what it is supposed to be. But I think that Commerce, Central has some, obviously a little bit more resources than the other two schools left, but Science and Technology and Commerce, they should have some type of career technical programming so that kids who don't get into Putnam or Central don't feel like it's the end of the world, there's nothing to do, but hopefully go to college, and if I can't do that, then I'm not successful.
I think there's not even that, so not that, but all of our kids who don't get into Putnam, I think there's this idea, and it changes each year, like people come and attend a test, that Putnam used to not be the place you wanted to go.
5 years ago, 6 years ago. No, it wasn't the place you wanted to be.
And it changes.
Because of resources.
Commerce used to be the place that everybody wanted
to go
Central.
To.
And then Central. And it changes. And it's that perception of kids here that, that's not the place I want to be. So I don't want to be there. And it's actually, Commerce has amazing programs there. They're the only high school in the city that has an international baccalaureate program.
You're right.
And so, kids go through that program and they get it. I had students at Sci Tech who are like, I am in this band, and this band is going to help me pay to go to college because I have a skill that I am learning. Or I am in this ROTC program at any of our high schools, and this ROTC is going, I want to serve my country, or I'm going to use this ROTC scholarship to help me pay for college, to help me do something. And ROTC is actually going to pay for me to get my engineering degree or anything like that.
But all the things that you're talking about are extracurricular. I'm talking about things being part of the programming for the average kid to be able to take as
in the curriculum itself.
as enrichment block, or what do they call it? I forget the other word. Elective.
Electives, yeah.
That's what I'm like when we were in middle school. So I am way older than you. When I was in middle school, we had exploratory, and you got to take a shop, and you got to take a different language and all these different things to figure out what you wanted to do when you got into high school, which then was preparing you for what you wanted to do when you graduated.
We were just discussing that. Me and my fellow colleagues were discussing how we feel like at 6th grade, students should have a choice of what elective they want to take. They shouldn't have to take a gym. So some kids don't want to do that. Maybe they play sports outside of that, and maybe they want to focus on art, or maybe they just want to focus on music, because we rotate them. And I just want to shout out the fact that you are highlighting the positives, and it's so good that we highlight the positives, because it's just not presented. There are a lot of great things happening at our high schools. A lot of our kids are pressing and trying hard to do their best, in spite of maybe lack of resources or things of that nature. And not to mention, we are like Springfield. The beautiful thing about Springfield is we're a hub. We're like 2 hours away from New York, hour and a half from Boston. We're in Massachusetts, which is supposedly one of the best places to get your education. I shout out HBCUs though. But anyways, I do think it is important, like you said, the idea of bringing that back. And kids are tactile. You know, they like to do things with their hands, and they like to feel this, and they like to be a part of it. And it can really help them be invested and feel a part of something than just sitting in the classroom, which unfortunately sometimes, as much as you do try, you are lectured at. At the same time, with the tactileness, it is important that we do keep pushing for college, because to develop, like you said, the good character and things of that nature, you can develop good character and just the discipline, determination, and stamina, and like staying focused on just the basic things like English and math, because I know that I need this. I need more people of color as teachers ASAP. We make, like, black men make up 2% of the market of teachers in education, and we try to find. I'm looking. They at your school?
Yeah,
they all at your school. That's it. But you took all of them. You took all of them. All 10 educators, y'all. Y'all don't even understand the struggle as a person of color. And I mean, I've even spoken to admin who sometimes, especially this happens in charter schools where it's just predominantly white, and you talk to admin. I've even said this. Admin doesn't like it. You know, if hopefully they're being honest. But I've even said it's like, it'd be so much easier for administration if y'all had people of color. I don't like talking to my boys sometimes, because I'm like, I need a man to talk to this young man, because I'm not a man, and I can't do it the way you can, my brother over here to my right. I can't do it the way you can.
I mean, it was designed for...
That's how they build character, right?
That's exactly what it is. And to the point that a lot of the programs that I've seen go into the schools for enrichment are programs like Season of a Father and the Mocha and some of these other programs where it's men of color going into the schools and getting in there and mentoring our boys. Again, it's community partnership that has to take place, and you have to have leadership who's willing to allow them to come in. Yes, we want to see them become teachers, and we got to figure out how do we motivate them. Right. But in the meantime, the immediate opportunity needs to be that these men can get access to our boys so that they can help instill some values in them. Because most of them are living at home with just mom. And they don't have daddy around, and they don't see a man that can teach them some real values, you know? And so, yeah, our kids have so much potential, and they're so smart that if we don't keep them occupied, they will find something to do that may not be the best thing to do.
Right.
You know,
I want to add and then push again onto the notion that like most of our kids don't have dad at home. That's like something that is actually not true, and I remember finding that out and like, you know, hearing the story that
Excuse me.
Nobody got daddy at home. That like it's an urban myth. Like yes, many people are locked up, but our kids have families at home, and many times they do the wrong thing and try to pretend they ain't got nobody at home. And then you call home, and they're like, "Oh,
my dad works. He works 40 hours.
Your dad works nights, so you thought that means he wasn't home because you didn't get to see him because he's working his behind off to help you out."
Well, I'm speaking from my experience with the kids that I mentor, and the groups that I worked with, and a lot of them don't have dad at home. So that when I say these generalizations, I'm saying them in the sense of what my experience have been. I know my kids have a father at home, so I know that it's not the case that that's not happening. But the kids that I have to deal with, and the kids that usually have the bigger issues that I've experienced, have been the ones that don't have dad at home.
Other than building, because I know we talked a lot about how to going back to the debate, good workers, good people. We talked a lot about how to develop a good worker within a child. They giving them skills, electives, prioritizing. Like there's no need for 2 gym periods. Like we can sacrifice one of those for a shop class or whatever. What more can we do to develop them to be good people, a good person? Like what can we do as far as within that 8? It was about 8, average on 8 hour.
Well, yeah.
7, 8.
Minimize standardized testing. Give them some time to do something else besides playing for A-net. Mm-hmm. I think that a lot of teachers and a lot of teachers that I'm talking to, they're all continually talking about teaching to the test and the challenges of having constant standardized testing and having your merit being based on whether or not your kids are reading proficiently or not, and the challenges of getting kids to come in that speak a different language or they have behavioral issues or whatnot, and still being expected to bring them along with the rest of the kids and keep the ones that are flourishing excited enough and challenged enough that they're still able to flourish while you're trying to pull the other kids along. So I think there's so many different challenges in that arena, and to think that a lot of the schools in Springfield Public Schools, they are not getting gym on a regular basis. My kids get gym once every 2 weeks. So, and then it's exactly. And then there's art, and it's like we got to choose between having art or music, and we have to choose between all of these things that are very important for our kids to develop and to learn how to be creative and learn how to tone it down and know you don't need medication, you just need recess. You know what I mean? There's just certain things that I think are common sense that our kids are missing out on because people are so focused on standardized testing.
So, so here's the catch, right? So standardized testing really came heavy in like the mid 90s. Just to give us the background information,
99.
right? Right.
Because it was right after I graduated from high school.
They started pushing legislation for that, because what happens is the Department of Education brought in people who were business, who worked like at Xerox and things of that nature. So it's a business mindset when it comes to standardized testing, because it's just businesses, you do well, you perform well, you get rewarded. You do well on your data, you do well, you perform well with these tests, our kids will, because we wanted to measure it, your schools will get rewarded. If you don't, we're going to replace the principal, replace the staff. So here's the catch. The thing about, and it's a moneymaker, the thing about these tests is that they can also help you. If you do poorly, we can get more resources at times. But if you do poorly, then you start focusing solely on taking the test. If you want to change what's happening, you got to change your legislation. You got to get people in office who want to change the legislation, because it is legislation based. It is not, the principal is not in control of this. We're not in control of it as teachers. We try our best to work our way around it and to put ourselves in our classrooms and really make our kids excited about different things other than just the testing that is a part of it. It's just, but we're not controlling legislation. This is legislative based.
You're right.
It's like principals. Superintendent barely didn't have control. It is legislative based.
So when I think about, and this may be an unpopular opinion, I do not mind standardized tests. I think it does give good data and like, what is it that our students are actually able to do? Do I think it's always equitable? No, I don't think there's any reason why Massachusetts had to vote to be an English-only state where scholars whose first language is not English, you have 1 year to make sure you're proficient to be able to take any test in English. That doesn't make any sense.
Right.
But for everybody else, and for like, this isn't true for Springfield necessarily, but for the majority of the state, almost all of our English language learners have been here kindergarten to 12th grade. There's a very smart percentage in the state of Massachusetts, at least, where you have people coming in as English language learners, English as a second language learner, because all of our kids are learning English for their entire lives, but English as a second language learners later on.
Right.
And so, like, yes, I feel that, like, in my, like, I teach in a cohort which is, like, predominantly English language learners. Like, that is my focus. Those are my babies. But it's, like, I do think that those tests actually do give us good information. Like, yes, this is telling me, like, this test just told me that you are actually 3 grades behind. And that is going to teach me, like, what do I need to do to help you get to where you need to be? What do we need to look at to help you get to where you need to be? And if I didn't have that data, if we weren't actually data-based, I don't know, and this is probably just me speaking as a math teacher because I love numbers and data all the time. What would I measure you against? So, like, for example, I don't believe in teaching to the test, although I do believe that sometimes those tests do give us good data. For example, I tell this to my kids all the time to get them excited about taking the MCAS. Different talent search programs use those MCAS test scores to help you get opportunities. I have a little cousin in Atlanta who, you know, did so well on his state exams that he was invited to Duke's talent search program. That would not have happened if that test didn't exist, because it's a way to like level the playing field, because everyone's taking the same test, so you're at this level, you're at this gauge that, you know, we as teachers are not figuring out. And I think back to like college admissions. If I just go based on your grades, an A at this school is not the same as an A at this school. Even in the same school, sometimes an A in one teacher's class is only a C plus in another teacher's class. So I do think that like standardizing tests is just that. It's a way for me to see like where kids are if they're meeting this standard.
It has its place. It has its place.
I don't think that it's done in the right way.
But it has its place.
I don't think that it gives us resources in the right way. I don't think you should punish schools if kids aren't meeting the bar, especially like the school that I currently work at. They're like, oh, kids aren't meeting the bar again and again and again. That means your school is doing something wrong. I'm like, no, our school hasn't had certified teachers for the past 5 years. And we've had a different principal every year and different staff every year. So don't you think that that's kind of an issue in itself?
So here's the thing, right? So I agree with you, because standardized testing does have its place. I agree with you 100%. I don't think it's been used correctly all the time. I don't think we should be punished, especially when it's, to me, here's my ratio, it's 40% educators, 60% the community and teacher. It's community and parents. When your child comes to me, they should already have some type of home training in place so that I can provide them with even that much more in regards to the education. At the same time, I gotta say this to you real quick. Certified does not mean qualified. It is not. I know plenty of certified teachers who are not qualified in the pedagogy that they're taught. Pedagogy is the way we teach our kids. They know the pedagogy, but they don't in the theory and the methodology, but they don't have the right training or understand cultural pedagogy. And what I mean by that is they're not taught. We have teachers who aren't taught how to teach, and it's not just a black thing. It's not a white thing. They're not taught how to teach in that environment or adapt to that culture in that environment. Or you live a half hour away from your community. That's fine and dandy, but you need to be a part of that community. You need to know where those kids are coming from. And it helps you. It just helps you so much more to understand that child's mentality. If a child, you want to know how you help develop a child's character, you model it for them. That child comes in, and if you have a student coming in, and say you have a boy coming in, and he comes in, he starts cussing, or he's pissed off or something like that, doesn't necessarily mean he's angry at you. Maybe this is his safe place. Maybe he can come in and communicate with you, and you can model to him, this is how we respond to your frustration. Maybe you're frustrated because you're tired, because you had to get up at 5 and help your mom get your siblings to school and get on the bus, and you're tired because you got a long day and something frustrated you. That child, but culturally people aren't taught that. Maybe they're not cussing at you to be mad. They feel safe. They feel comfortable that they can vent. That's how you help develop character with your students. You model that behavior. You meet them where they're at, and you teach to their future and where they're going to be.
And you treat them as if they're your own. So
yes,
the reality is that most of our kids have to look at teachers who don't look like them. And the reality is that most of these teachers are looking at kids that don't look like their own. So the way you interact and the compassion that you're going to have on a child should be the same that you would treat your own, and often that is not the case. And so I'm speaking from a parent whose son went through a lot of changes because people were constantly, you're defiant, he's bad, he's this, he's that. And my son was fine one year, and the next year all of a sudden it was like, what happened to my child? And now he's doing much better. He has teachers that are very encouraging and supportive of him. But this is an issue when you're treating my son like the fact that he has too much energy in your eyes means he's bad. But when your son has too much energy, he's so gifted and talented and needs to be taught how
just a kid.
To just be a child and just do what he needs to do. He's creative and has all this intelligence.
I like thinking of middle school, and like, but this is not meant to be anything other than exactly what I'm saying.
Disclaimer, prefacing.
Like, this is like the way I think of, like, you know how you have like cause I have two boxers that like I love. They passed away a little while ago, but like they were these huge, beautiful animals that like thought they were lap dogs, but didn't know how big they were. And that's kind of how I think of middle schoolers. I'm like, you are 6'2",
yes,
but you have the mindset of an 11-year-old.
Yes.
But you don't realize that you're 6'2" with a deep voice. Like you don't realize you look grown, and so when you're over here like trying to box up, I'm like, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, you're 8.
And sometimes, and you know what you do with them? It's so funny because and one, I let them know, especially my boys. I'm like, listen, I need you to know who you are in this world and what this world gonna see you as, because it does break my heart when I see my boys and he's only 12 and he is almost 6 feet, and I'm like, you don't look like a black little boy. You like a grown man to some people. And then at the same time, you do remember when they do square up, you be like, sit your happy behind down, boy. Exactly. You ain't about to do nothing. I know your mama, and I'll talk to you like I'm your mama. So get it together, and I do.
Like, to build on that, like that was the reason why I came back to Springfield, because my teaching and education experience was very much community based. Right. I couldn't get away with anything at any time. Showing up in the lunchroom, like, are you Tylee's grandbaby? Yes. How do you know my great grandmother? Okay, you go to church with her too. All right, fine. I'm just gonna be
Oh wait, or don't be at the store, or how about this one? You know everybody's mama, because you just know everybody's mama, and it's important. That's why I mentioned you need to be in your community, whether you're white or black. Just be present, because I see my kids at the park, I see them at the store, and that even helps me build a rapport, because I'll roll up on them in the store and be like, hey, what's up, how you doing? Oh, you didn't think I know? Because I do. I know where you at, I know who you are, and when that helps me be able to speak to them and say, I know who you are, and I know where you come from, so you can't run no game on me, you can't play me, and I expect greatness from you.
Same. And it helps you, to me it helps you, there is a benefit to teaching your community. Like, if you were someone who has transplanted, like, I still commend you, because like you made the decision to teach somewhere like where you're not, for some of us. But like I know that buy-in. I know being like the reason I came back. Like, I remember the first year I came back, meeting with a parent and then being like, are you Buck's granddaughter? And I'm like, yes, I am. They're like, you need to listen to this woman. Like, she's good people. And I'm like, yes, I am. Yep, that's me. And just having that connection with kids, driving on my way to work every single day and seeing every single one of my students standing at the same bus stop, and I gotta see you every single day. All right, great. I will never tell you where I'm live.
Never.
You'll find me.
You'll show up at my house at the cookout. What?
Yes.
Can we get a plate, Miss Little? No, why are you here? That's not my name while I'm here. Don't call me by that. I've seen your kids. I've seen you. And I'm just like, why do y'all know me? But that is so important, because that only... See, teaching goes so far out of the classroom, and people don't get that. And like, I model my character. I model how to be a good person and a good worker, because you see my work ethic at school, and you see me outside. You don't know me acting a mess. You see me carrying myself well. That's why I always tell my teachers for some reason do this. They start dressing crazy. I mean, real regular and basic. Not nasty or nothing, but kind of just basic. Casual, super casual, yes. And that's why, especially my women of color, my men of color, I'm like, we need to come dressed to the nines, because these kids need to know that, I can look fresh and clean and look good, and this is how you should carry yourself all the time. All the time, because I'd be like, why does she look like... That's not my business. I'm not gonna comment. But then that's why the kids make fun of the teachers. They be like, Miss, her breath is hot and she look crazy, and I'm like, I can't comment, but I want to laugh, because it's true. It's true.
But you know what you're saying is on it, because I think about some of the educators that I know that don't live here. They live, might live in Long Meadow, Agawam, or something like that, and they are not women of color, but they absolutely are invested in our kids. And the thing is, our kids have to know that you care, right? It all goes back to knowing that the person that is spending the time with you cares about you. Then you do feel like you're in a safe space. Then when they tell you to be quiet, you sit down and be quiet, because you know they care.
Yep.
And a lot of times you'll have that tussle in the beginning where they're trying to figure out, do you really care?
Right.
And then once they know you do, then they're good. They'll listen to anything you tell them to do. But it takes time to get there for them to know that they can trust you and that you got their back.
And I think what can happen is you get not a generation, like a one cluster of kids, that one unlucky grade that like every single year the teachers left. Every single year they were told that the person who's in front of them cared about them, and they were leaving. And so they get to a point, you get this same cluster of kids. It's just that unlucky group of kids who they, the teacher comes in and they do care, and they're just like, I don't believe you.
Mm-hmm.
We're 10 weeks into the school year. You're still here. I still don't believe you.
Yeah.
I'm pushing to see if you really do, but I don't believe you. So, and now we've built up these like trust issues with kids. We're like, we don't actually trust the educators who are in front of us. I don't trust you have your. Mm-hmm. Not only do I not trust that you have my best interest in your heart, but also I haven't had someone with me, so now I'm lacking the academic and the social skills. So you're trying to push me to be uncomfortable every single day, and I'm not prepared academically for this. So I'm gonna act up because I don't want to deal with this. This is hard.
Yes.
And I don't want to talk about this. I don't want to think about this.
And since we're talking about that, building the trust, it's so important that educators we do stay, so if we can, and like build that rapport with our students, so that they can understand that we are very present. And when we do implement accountability, this is what I'm transitioning to, accountability and consequences and being disappointed, because when you're disappointed in a student or a child or any person, that means that person is saying, I'm disappointed in what you could have done well, and you chose to be the smartest dumb person, and that affects you more than I'm angry, I'm yelling at you, because I can't stand this. It's it just irks my soul. I don't believe in suspending our kids unless it's for something that's so egregious that we cannot resolve it in school. If anything, I prefer you to stay in school, in-house, instead of out of school suspension. I don't, especially, it doesn't benefit Black and brown children. It's been shown that it doesn't really benefit, period. I also am big against, I prefer restorative justice with our students instead of being punitive. Like, and that requires a relationship. That requires being present. Like, you can talk to your kids like I can't, because I don't know them, but you can check them real quick, and you can just whisper in their ear and get in their heads and let them know that you can do this. You are better than this. We are meant to do great things, and your behavior is not acceptable. If you need to talk to me about it, that's fine. But I'm not kicking you out of class if I try not to, because I want you to know that this is your sanctuary. This is home if you're not home.
And I think it's and to that end, there's a difference between consequence and punishment.
Right.
Like, a consequence is a lesson.
Talk about it.
It's, you did something, we have to learn, whether it can be positive or negative. Like, you did something, I want you to continue to do this, keep doing that thing. You do not do this again, please, ever. And I want you to understand that these are the type of negative consequences, the negative things, the results of your actions. And sometimes we treat our disciplinary system as if it's supposed to punish kids and be punitive, as opposed to be like, no, you are here to learn.
Exactly.
You should never be... Go ahead.
Go ahead, no.
I was just going to say, like, you should never be excited, happy, pleased, content, any of those words to describe how you should feel if you have to dole out a punishment to a consequence. Excuse me. I prefer consequence. I hope people don't do punishments or get that out their mind. You should never be if my student does wrong, I'm not happy. I'm hurt because you letting yourself down, and this is not what I came in to get an education for. And I'm hurt, and believe me, this is why I tell my young teachers, I'm sorry, they may not like it, but I'm not sorry, it's the truth. You're not going to reach every student, because it's not your place to reach every student. Somebody else might help them more than you can, but it should bother you, especially if your education, that like, oh man, what's going on that this is happening with this person? Why are they allowing this? Why are they getting in their own way and struggling? You know what I mean? And then people push out consequences. I mean, punishments, and it's just like, I'm not trying to punish a kid. That's not my job. I'm trying to raise them into the way that they should go.
And I think being in a few very different schools, noticing that in places where, at least what I've seen, where students have the best connection with their teachers, no matter what color that teacher is, is where the teacher doesn't have to be the one to always dole out those negative consequences. If it's, one of the teachers' fear, like, I know that coming into this room, these are these teachers' expectations, and if I don't meet it, this is what's going to happen. No matter who I am, these are her expectations, these are his expectations, this is what's going to happen. Classroom management. But when it goes to the point, because I went to Sabbath. Like, I went there, old school Sabbath, before Mr. Calvinese left. Old school Sabbath, and I remember... just deciding to not do the wrong thing, because I knew that if I acted up, the teacher would be like, and you're gone. Like, I do not have the time in these 40 minutes that I have you to have a conversation with you right now. You need to go discuss that with somebody else, but I don't have that time at this moment. and knowing that me being sent to the classroom would result in me having to go talk to the dean, which result in me getting a phone call home. And I'm like, I don't want to deal with any of that. But I didn't hold it against my teacher because I knew that was the expectations no matter where I went. And where I see that breakdown, I think when we talk about there needs to be good administration who is also building that community piece. It's how are you supporting your teachers to be their best authentic selves?
Right.
How are you? Because I've been in plenty of classrooms. You know, the teacher is doing all the great right things. I remember being in a school and, you know, calling every single parent. And I remember them being like, I've never got a phone call from this school ever. What did he do? I'm like, just saying hi. You got my number. You got any questions? Make sure you call back.
And that makes a difference.
You know, going through those things and then holding the consequence of being like, you're staying with me after school.
Yep.
And then the administrator being like, actually, if they don't make it, let them try it again. Me being like, all right, fine. They say if they don't make it, then I'm gonna keep them for a part day in school suspension for skimping multiple times. I'm like, okay, fine. Then they don't make it again, and then they're like, actually, no, we're not gonna do that thing. And having kids be like, oh, so I can do what I want, and there's not gonna be any accountability piece here.
Kids want accountability.
Yes,
and they want consequences because any kid that has a sane mind, because some of these kids, you'd be wondering what's going on with these kids. But any kid that is perfectly sound wants love, and they understand that love means that you're going to tell me what's right and what's wrong. And if I'm doing something that's going to hurt me, you love me enough to let me know that I'm doing something that's going to hurt me. And that in of itself, that's discipline, right? It's not punishment, it's discipline. So when you're setting those boundaries and there's consequences behind those boundaries, then they know, oh, okay, they're helping me to be a better person. They may not tell you that because they don't appreciate it at the time. But I can remember when my son's teacher last year called me crying, and I'm thinking, oh Lord, what did this boy do now?
That look, he's so, I know, listen, that's my baby.
So she calls and she's crying, and I'm like, what's going on? And she's like, this never happened to me before. And I'm like, oh Lord, what did my baby do? And she said he wrote me a letter telling me thank you for believing in
Bendito.
me. You know what I'm saying? So our kids, even though she was very tough on him, but he appreciated it and he felt like you believe in me, you care. And that makes a difference. You know what I mean?
And you know, 100% it does. And they do tell you. They just may not say it, but they do tell you when they keep coming back around and coming back around. And I've had students just feel some kind of way and say what they want to say. The next day, coming back around, trying to talk to me, trying to be in my space. I told you the other day, I don't like your behavior. I will be so honest with a child. There's no need to lie to them because they can detect BS in a heartbeat. But we also want to think about this too when we're teaching our kids. We're talking about developing character and making them a good worker. We said this earlier, what success means. We have to remember that we also cannot be Eurocentric in our views of how we teach our kids. And we have to step out of the colonial mindset. And what I say to that is, I offered a suggestion. Please read for white folks who teach in the hood and the rest of y'all too. Reality Pedagogy and Urban Education. I'm gonna read it one more time.
Please do.
For white folks who teach in the hood and the rest of y'all too. Reality Pedagogy and Urban Education. Christopher Emden. No, he says the rest of y'all too because there are black folks and people of color who are stuck on the quote unquote white folks mentality. Like I said, it's not necessarily a color thing because there are some very aware white teachers who know their lanes, know the best they can do, and know when they need help and try to access those resources. But I bring him up and I bring that book up that I really suggest you read because it's important for us to realize that we need to teach our children outside of what the colonial mindset is, the Eurocentric mindset is. They did that to indigenous peoples when they tried to take them from their lands and try to make them white and how you should be in the white community and how you should operate in the white community. And people of color, we do not operate in that same capacity. We are a subculture to the American culture and we operate totally different. We speak to our kids totally different. We raise our kids totally different. And I'm not just talking about black, I'm saying in general, our kids will have to operate in this world totally different. So that's why I have no problem telling my students, and I challenge them even more so. Why? Because you have to do twice as much to get half as much in the this world. So we have to step out of that colonial mindset that, oh, this is how we should train our kids to go. Maybe they do need to train because that's going to benefit them the most in their community. And maybe you should realize that, okay, they have 6 siblings. Mom and dad are working. What could help them the most and what could benefit them and make them most happy? And maybe it's getting a trade.
I think
going to work, making them feel good.
Thinking about all those things, there was when I first started teaching, the big thing was being culturally responsive. Being and then I went to a conference and they were like, that's not enough. You need to be community responsive. And that made me think of my first year teaching. I was like, yep, I'm black. I'm going to be teaching little black kids. It's going to be great. And then, so I'm like, I know them. They know me. We live the same life.
But was it just black kids?
It wasn't. No. It was, so my first year teaching, I taught in Dayton, Ohio, which is a completely different animal than Springfield. I was not used to actually being or in a school that was 98% black. Not 98% like Caribbean mixed with some Afro-Cuban and some Afro-Latino and a bunch of other different things. I mean, 98% African-American. Your family has been in this area for centuries. And that was not something I was accustomed to. And it was a completely different way to interact with students. And I had to like recognize and tackle that. Like, that's not like this. Just being culturally responsive is not enough.
It's not a black and white thing per se only. Yeah.
And then another thing that I was thinking about, I was just trying to get the quote down so I could remember it at that same conference. Speaking on that definition of success, I said, are we teaching our kids to escape poverty or to end it?
Say that one more time.
Are we teaching our kids to escape poverty or to end it?
Yes.
Like, what is our goal when we are teaching our students, we are raising our kids? Are we teaching them that, to make it, you need to have the most money, you need to have the most things, you need to have the best car? Are we teaching them that? Or are we teaching them to be kind people and thinking, being critical of the way in which they view each other? And how are you helping your fellow man? Like, what are we doing with our kids?
And not just that, as a woman, because we are females at this table, and if we identify as women, let's throw that out there. So anyways, as a woman also, teaching our young girls, Chimamanda Adichie said this, she's from Nigeria, she wrote Americana, I love her, and she's problematic in some ways, but we all are, but I love her stuff. She's very, very wonderful. She's like the new Maya, y'all. When she talks, I just like to listen to her because her voice is like butter. This the way she speaks. Not in the writings, but like way she speaks is like clean. But anyways, back to my point. She said this, Chimamanda Adichie said this, she said, do we train our girls to compete for husbands? Or do we train them to compete and be in competition like our boys for jobs and changing our societies and communities? So as women, developing character, we wanted to make a good person, not just a good worker. We want to train our girls, and to our men, training our girls and training our boys to be receptive to our girls and respecting them in that way, to say, no, challenge your girls. Oh, you throw like a girl. No, Michelle throws better than everybody in the room. You know what I mean? Training them to be competing on the engineering, civil engineering, aeronautical engineering, all those wonderful things that are out there. And we want them to access that because we all know when women are employed and working in the community, it builds up the community, better than it was before. And not to mention, we need to get paid more as women because they playing us.
As a ending question, before we close out, just going around the table, what do you feel should be the main purpose of school? Is it to prepare them for college?
What?
Prepare them for the workforce, and by school I mean this
one question
K through 12 schools.
I thought we already answered this.
That's a teacher for you. Wait a minute. We're gonna economize this time well. He wants you to summarize.
In a sentence, they are one and the same. You cannot have an excellent employee or an excellent employer who does not have the soft skills of being able to work with others and being a productive part of the community that they are working in. Okay. So you cannot, and you should not, and I think that our government tries to, that our funding methods try to separate out to two by saying that yes, math and ELA are the most important. That's why we're testing those. But also now looking at like how quickly are students graduating? How how our, you know, in Ohio when I left, they had changed their graduation requirements where it wasn't just, oh, you need to pass this test. It was like either you were passing this test and going to college, or you are graduating with a certificate because that proves that you are ready to be productive and independent. Right. So, you know, I think our many states and many places are already looking and trying to define the fact that, like, yep, you're right. These are one and the same. We can't just say there's one model that fits all. We can't say that thing. And we need to be able to recognize that these two are not separate, and that there are ways for us to measure students being both good employers and employees and productive members of society.
Mm-hmm. I think you hit the nail on the head with that. It is. Yeah, we said it. You know. Can I throw a quote out in there? Yeah. Ralph Ellison from Invisible Man. If y'all don't know what it is, Google it, because Google's important. This is a quote. He's an African American writer. He talks about what it means to be an African American man. He says, "I am invisible. Understand simply because people refuse to see me, like the bodiless heads you see sometimes in circus sideshows. It is as though I have been surrounded by mirrors of hard, distorting glass. When they approach me, they see only my surroundings themselves or figments of their imagination. Indeed, everything and anything except me." I think to answer also that question, to sum it up, you need to be student based and see your students. You need to see them, because if you can see them, you can service them. Right. So you need to be able to see your students and not see yourself, not only see yourself, not only see your surroundings, but you need to see your students and be student centered, because that means you put the weight on the students to learn. You'll challenge them, you'll encourage them, you'll bless them, you'll be in their corner, you'll be able to pray for your kids when they get on your nerves. You know, all those different things you can do. If you can see your students, then you can service them.
Well, I would say that our schools should be designed to produce leaders. And I think to be an effective leader, they need to have character. They need to be able to work. They need to be employable. But they also need to be prepared for that post-secondary level, whatever it is that they choose to do. And I think when we start to teach our kids to lead, as many other communities do, that we will be very intentional about ensuring the resources are there to support them so that they can develop effectively, so they're not hindered. For example, perfect example, 1.67 GPA for student athletes. Mm-hmm. So you're basically saying you're not going to college, you're not getting a scholarship because all you can do is play basketball here, and who cares what happens to you after. That's really ridiculous. So if we're training our kids and preparing them to be leaders in the world, knowing that one day they will have to lead, because we're going to get older and older and retire eventually, and then eventually die. Our kids need to be able, to take the helm and be able to bring us to the next level. And right now, our kids are not being trained to be leaders.
It has been a privilege to share this evening with you all. Personally, as a new educator, I'm definitely appreciate your and you for being informative, honest, and all the ways just giving us this intellectual conversation. www.plumpeoples.com. Please make sure you follow us at Plum Peoples on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Make sure you go out and vote November 7th. Yes. State and for the state and local politics of Springfield, Massachusetts, and everywhere around the world, pretty much.
Okay.
This is the People's Space for Debate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.